Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Tuesday morning. Glad you're here. It's the world of sports. Today we're going to talk about a big shocker, a big change at Fresno State overnight. We'll talk about Raiders football and high school football with our return guest here on the program today. 436 MeTV option 11. Connect with me starts right now.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
Okay, back here on the program, World of Sports, and it's a lot of fun to talk about sports here on this program. Don't do it all that often, but when I do get a chance, it's a blast here on the program, and I encourage your phone calls at 436-MeTV, option 11. Hey, a quick programming note for tomorrow. Should be a very interesting program because I think for only the second time in the last five and a half years that I've been doing this show, we'll have somebody from the Sikh community in on the program tomorrow to talk about this backlash against Sikhs since 9/11, since 2001, the 9/11 attacks. That's right. Many people around the country are just, they're looking at these Sikhs and they think to themselves, it must be a Muslim. So there have been a lot of attacks on Sikhs, not only here in the Central Valley, but around the nation in the last few years. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about this We Are Sikhs campaign to try to inform the public. It's a national campaign, by the way, to try to inform everybody of who the Sikhs are, not only in this area in the city of Fresno, but around the nation. All right, you're watching us live on Comcast Channel 375. As usual, it's Monday through Friday, 10 to 11. And it's a broadcast, it's a call-in talk show, as you know now, 436 MeTV option 11. And you should know by now that if you don't have Comcast, it's not a huge deal. 43.6, 13.1 over the air with a television broadcast antenna. Then the replay comes up again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube. Again, these times here, that's over-the-air broadcast. 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. No real big sporting event to compete with tonight at 8 o'clock. So no World Series, no major football game or anything like that. So you can watch the replay of this one. All right, talking about the Fresno State Bulldogs right now, they are 6-3 on the year, and that's a big shocker all by itself. In fact, they could qualify for a bowl game. They got 3 games left. We'll see what happens. Last year they were 1-11, and right now they're in the process of trying to rebuild their fan base. But along the way, with every season comes distractions. And there is a huge distraction going on right now. At least it happened overnight. The bombshell came out of Fresno State that Jim Barco, the athletic director, had resigned after only 3 years on the job. Hey, not even. Let's put up the photo and I'll explain. This is Jim Barco right here. 2.5 years ago, out on San Luis Reservoir, snagging the big one with Roger George, shortly before Barco appeared on this program on April the 14th on 2015. I saw Barco at the Hall of Fame banquet last Thursday night here in Fresno. He told me he was concerned about his health. And so let's change the photo. He had a 5-year plan when he came on this program. Reinstate wrestling, done. Water polo, done. Increased staffing, done. Improved fundraising and facility upgrades. Let's change it again. Here's Barco's plan for Bulldog Stadium. Only a portion of this got done. As you know, there were some snags along the way because of the cracking in the concrete, including the restrooms, stairwells, scoreboard, club access, the sound system, and all the rest. It's incredible. Barco, last October, just fired Tim DeRuiter, the head coach. He hired Jeff Tedford, Troy Steiner, the wrestling coach, Natalie Benson, the water polo coach. He hired 3 other coaches, and now they're having to replace him, at least temporarily, with a name we'll mention here later during the course of the program. But Jim Barco resigning overnight. That's the big bombshell. Live in our studio right now is Tommy Tran, ABC Channel 30 sports director. He is here to talk about the Fresno State Bulldogs, Jim Barco. What kind of a season are the Bulldogs having? Terrific. And so is this good or bad news for Fresno State? As you know, Barco came from Oregon State, or was it Oregon? Oregon, that's right. Well, he was a huge fundraiser up there. He spent 26 years up there and raised millions of dollars for Oregon University. And I think the idea from Joseph Castro was, when he hired Barco, is to do the same here with the Fresno State Bulldogs, raise millions of dollars through fundraising, upgrade the stadium, and improve that football team. 436 MeTV option 11. What does this all mean for Fresno State? That's the big question. Back in a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Whirlpool appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Touch the new Whirlpool Ice Collection. It offers a modern style made to create an inspiring kitchen experience. Save big on this Whirlpool Black Ice or White Ice kitchen. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
All right, back here on the program. Welcome back. Tommy Tran, ABC
Hey.
Channel 30. How are you, sir?
Doing well, John. How are you?
I'm doing fine. A little tired today, but you know what? I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad you're here.
Glad to be here, and it's a good thing to spend a morning with you, talk a little bit about sports.
You know, I was thinking on the way over, you know, we should both consider this. Like, I listen to a lot of sports talk radio, especially KNBR 680 over in the Bay Area. Sometimes I'll tune it in the morning, at night, and I just love listening to the chatter. So maybe this can be a little bit like KNBR. We can talk all the sports stuff we want. Maybe not as harsh as they sound sometimes, but they're pretty harsh sometimes.
Depending on the sports, obviously they're doing well with, say, like the Warriors, and the Raiders are okay, but teams like the 49ers, they're going to hammer them pretty hard.
Yeah, they do. But so we should have some fun here today. But this Jim Barco thing, a serious thing, because I ran into him last Thursday night, and you know, I had mentioned to him that I wasn't going to eat what's on the menu because of my stents. I had heart issues. I had blockage. And it seemed like he opened up to me quite a bit about his health concerns. Don't want to speculate, but how is this going to affect Fresno State? Because Barco was a good hire.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising to say the least, if not shocking for Fresno State supporters when the news came out yesterday afternoon. Pretty short press release issued by the university with President Joseph Castro, you know, thanking Jim Barco, and the only thing we really have officially is that, you know, that he's resigning for personal reasons, which could be, you know, many things there, and again, we don't want to speculate, but it is a big blow for the university. You know, late 2014, Jim Barco was hired from Oregon, as you mentioned, longtime administrator, basically the number 2 there, hired here to become the number 1, in which, you know, he laid out some of the things in his 5-year plan, predominantly tasked with bringing back wrestling, which is coming back this season, adding women's water polo, which just had hosted a collegiate cup over the weekend, and then the Bulldog Stadium renovation, which up to this point we only have renderings and sort of projections, but there's been a couple snags with the renovation project, mainly a water main break that's closed off portions of the section.
Yeah.
So, you know, about half of what he's been tasked to do has been completed. The big one, Bulldog Stadium, has yet to really go and be started, essentially. And now a big question mark of who are they going to have to replace him, and is that going to be the same vision as when he first got here?
Yeah, that's the big question. And you know, he made some good hires. I mentioned during the monologue. Okay, getting rid of DeRuyter, that was one, because obviously 1 in 11 fans were just calling for DeRuyter's head. We all know that. But Tedford, outstanding hire. Steiner, you mentioned. Benson, you mentioned. So all of these things. How does a new guy come in And I know they hired a temporary guy to come in now. We'll talk about that. But the fact of the matter is, to pick up where somebody left off
Right.
is a very difficult task, because to pick up that person's vision inside their head of what they want for the university, tough one.
Yeah, I think there's a few things here. So the person who's taking over for Jim Barco in the interim is Steve Robertello, who's already been here. Actually was the interim before Jim arrived, and so he at least knows the ins and the outs of the university and kind of what has, already worked for the school and what they're doing moving forward. They're gonna, I assume, go with a national search like they did before. During the process of hiring Jim Barco, if memory serves me correctly, they outsourced it to a Chicago law firm, and that's how they found Jim. And knowing President Castro like I do, I did an in-depth interview with him actually just after Jim Barco was hired. They've had a track record of hiring basically their number one candidate in all sports, in all administrative efforts, not only in athletics, but also on the academic side. So you would think that once they get their priorities all checked out and that they're going to have this search for a new athletic director, that they're going to have a pretty good shot of finding someone that's in line with what they want to do.
Is Barco, can you put the label on him that he is the one, he is the single sole one that has helped turn this program around, not only with football, but in other areas, including the attitude on campus? Is it Barco? Is it Castro? Who is it?
I think.
Does it start with Barco?
I think it actually starts with President Castro, because first off, he's, when you get an administrator at a university, they're not always going to be pro athletics.
Yeah.
But Joseph Castro has made it very clear from day one that he believes, and this is a slogan that he uses, first off, be bold. The second thing he always talks about is athletics and academics rising together. And so, first off, you have to understand that you have a university president that is pro-athletics, and that's a big thing. Not every school does that. I went to San Jose State, where when I went to college, that was actually not the case. We almost lost Division I sports, but we had an interim president who understood the value of athletics and saved those programs. So that starts there, but I think, again, when you talk about finding the right fit, Jim was right in line with President Castro and what they wanted to do. And so, yeah, I mean, Jim had connections at Oregon, specifically Nike, obviously, so a lot of that already was transferred over here. You have on the men's basketball team, Paul George, who is a Nike guy, now has his shoe being worn. You have these other things where you have fundraising efforts and money coming in. So it's going to be important to find someone that can kind of take that and maybe even get to the level where Jim was at. Jim was a big thing. But Jim was a big thing about getting a lot of these coaches here. You talked about the resume. Jeff Tedford, obviously, former Bulldog, great success at Cal. And then Troy Steiner, you talk about a guy bringing in a wrestling program. He comes in at the highest level. Natalie Benson in water polo. She's a USA Water Polo Hall of Famer, comes from multiple national championships at UCLA. So he has brought in some real quality coaches. And again, though, the big thing for him was he was tasked with really getting out there. And I think, too, people understand, and maybe some people do, about the position of being an athletic director. It's a lot like, the VP of a Fortune 500 company, or even the city manager of a government. That's a lot of pressure.
He's like
day
the
in, day
CEO,
out.
isn't
He really is. And so the day in and day out of going out, trying to raise money while having, an athletic program, 20 sports altogether, 20 between men's and women's sports. That's a lot to take over. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I have some notes here from my last show that I did with him 2.5 years ago. He raised according to him, $375 million for capital improvements while in Oregon.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Imagine that here.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of places where you have to go and really talk to people and have them buy into a vision that you have for the university. And of course, Fresno State in this central San Joaquin Valley, the beacon for athletics, because there's really nothing from Bakersfield to Sacramento. But it can be a tough job, and you can spend a lot of 80-plus hour work weeks really working hard. And now in 3 years, it may feel like 3 years is not a long time, but if you consider how much work he's got to put in and where he's got to go and who he has to talk to. Sometimes you can kind of get burnt out. Again, we're not trying to pin it on any one specific thing, but just the nature of the job itself is very demanding, to say the least.
Yeah, you're talking about an 80-hour work week, like you mentioned, but working holidays, working weekends, never having any time to yourself or even for your family oftentimes. And it's your mind, in that position, I would imagine your mind just keeps turning.
Yeah,
It
you're always
never
thinking about the
stops.
next thing.
The next thing. What's the next thing? So you never kind of relax. In that position.
Yeah.
Maybe that was part of the problem.
It could be.
Who
I mean,
knows?
when
Pressure.
you showed the graphic, and again, even if you've checked off 3 of the 5 boxes, there's still 2 boxes left. Those 2 check marks that need to be written off are very big projects to do. So yeah, the biggest of them all, really. So. And that's tough given this economy. And, obviously Fresno State is a state institution. There's not going to be a lot of government money, a lot of state money coming in. So, again, you're having to look for other ways to find those financial supplements. And those are very tough right now.
All right, here's the other intangible. And you know what that is? Jim Barco was well-liked. That's hard to find, too.
Yeah.
Good man of character, respected,
Sure.
well-liked. Going to be hard to replace that, too.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would agree. And I think sometimes it's tough. Again, I'm not an administrator. I don't pretend to know what that's like. But sometimes, there are certain things when you are brought in to do. Sometimes it's to clean up a program. Sometimes it's to be straightforward. Sometimes it's to be, someone who makes sure that money's in line. And he had to do all that plus raise money. And you said that he's well-liked. So big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and plus, hard to find a guy that has the same vision as the president. They can all say in the interview process, hey, President Castro, I agree with you. And then once they get the gig, who knows what could happen. But that wasn't the case with Barco. He was right in line, as Tommy said, with Joseph Castro on the vision that they both wanted for Fresno State. And that was a key to the success right there. Nearly 3 years on the job, and Jim Barco is out. On the other side here, the break, we'll talk about the Bulldogs' success and what impact this might have on the field. They're 6-3, bowl-bound. Who knows? We'll see. 436 MeTV option 11. I hope you do take the time to watch and call in. Back in a moment.
When you're looking for Whirlpool innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified Whirlpool appliances save you energy and money and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to digital channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV guide.
All right, back here on the program, let's put up that picture of Jim Barco just one more time. We're here with Tommy Tran. He is the former athletic director now. He resigned late yesterday, of course. And look at this. This is a great photo. He went out with my friend Roger George out on there on San Luis a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago now, and caught the big one. And it looks like he was having a lot of fun there. He wanted to, fully entrench himself in the community. So what better way than to go out fishing with a good buddy of his, right?
Yeah, that's a great picture right there. You can see I'm not a big fishing guy, but I know that friends that I have do. That's a great photo.
I love that. And I'll tell you what, he probably learned a lot from Roger George. I don't know anybody that knows more about fishing than Roger George. It's amazing. Hey, caller, you've been patient. Go ahead. You're on the air with Tommy Tran.
Hey, Tommy, I really like you. I really think you have a very good delivery on your sportscasts. Yeah, I think it's very professional, very polished, and I think you do a really good job. You always look sharp, and you almost look like a trophy for a sportscaster. I'll tell you, you're really good. So one of the questions I had for you, though, is, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and thank you for the kind words, by the way. I don't know about the well-dressed part, although I do try, so thanks for that.
You got that bow tie thing going on, and that looks good. So anyway, the question I had is, when you talk about sports people that are well liked, can you talk a little bit about your feelings about, say, a Colin Kaepernick, who came from the Valley, who was very successful, and then the Oakland Raiders quarterback who is just phenomenally popular here in the Fresno area, local commercials and that sort of thing, his brother. And can you just talk a little bit about the differences between those two, and even though there's talent, why people feel the way they do?
Sure.
Thank you for the call.
Yeah, very interesting question. So let's just start first with Colin Kaepernick, because that's where your caller started first. And his story is a lot like we have, so there's tremendous talent in the Central Valley. And obviously we've, had stories of athletes coming from the Central San Joaquin Valley that have gone on to do some great things in the college ranks and then in the pro ranks. So, I can remember when the Niners were doing very well a few years ago, and Colin was, at the forefront of that for Jim Harbaugh and this 49ers team. And so, you start going, well, the 49ers are led by Turlock's Colin Kaepernick. Now, there's some question of saying native, because we talk about if someone's born here or not. Actually, he's from Wisconsin. So, but he was raised in Turlock and up in that area. So, for instance, here in the Central Valley, we always try to find some link. If there's a local link, that's how we tie things in. And so for Colin Kaepernick, it was, for the most part, good quarterback, young rising star, Super Bowl participating QB, and then what's happened with Colin since, the last year and a half has obviously turned political. And so then people start having their views, and it's less about him, the football player, and more about what he's done, what you perceive for him to represent, and then you go from there. Conversely, with Derek, it's a little different because he's a bit of a legacy. His brother David, of course, great quarterback for Fresno State. And so Derek's story a little bit more than you knew about Colin Kaepernick's. And so in college, of course, he's this hotshot quarterback, highly rated, decided he wanted to be a Bulldog. It means a lot to that community, and then they have a poor season his sophomore year in 2011, but tremendous seasons in 12 and 13, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then you take that where he goes to a team that he grew up liking, and then on top of that, a team that's close to the Valley, and then that a lot of Valley fans are Raider fans. And so you have this mixture of, hey, this is a Bulldog who's now on the Raiders, and then that goes with Derek. And then his popularity has certainly grown with the team playing well last year, struggling a bit this year. And then he has the commercials, the tie-ins, because he's a Bulldog. That'll never change. He's got the thing with David, which is great. The one thing I will tell your caller and anybody else listening about perception or how athletes are viewed, I can tell you, though, that even this season, because the Raiders are not off to this hot start that a lot of people thought they were, Derek is not above criticism. There are some people who, don't think he's as good of a quarterback anymore, and really it's because of how they play. But, and overall, people are not in tune with football like they used to be. So, for instance, I can see just from a feel of the metrics or posts that I have, because I have a weekly QB&A with Derek, overall, the popularity of football and even a guy like Derek Carr is not as high as it was even a year ago today. So I hope I answered that right. I kind of went on a few tangents there, but it was kind of hard to kind of put that in the
the popularity, that's shocking to hear that. That's big news. The popularity, let me get this straight in my brain here,
Sure.
because I have an aging brain, so I want to make sure it sinks in.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the popularity of Derek Carr is not as high as it was a year ago?
Yes. Yeah.
From Raider fans or who?
Well, no, I would think casual fans. I think because
Okay.
there's a good number, and we've talked about this before. There are a lot of people who are Derek Carr fans that are not football fans or Raider fans.
Okay.
And so he still has that. What I'm saying, though, is that the general popularity of him is not even as high because, again, football itself has become politicized in many ways. And so I've had a lot of comments. I read them all the time. Some people say, well, I don't really care. I'm boycotting the NFL, so this doesn't really interest me in any way in short shape. So I'm not saying it's an overwhelming thing. I'm just saying it's more than it's been in the past year, and a lot of what the NFL has had to deal with has carried over to even a guy like Derek Carr.
Yeah, but The reason that's shocking is because in my era, I went through, and I'm a 49er Raider fan, and I also like the New York Giants for some reason. I don't know why. But in my day, I was looking at Joe Montana and Jim Plunkett and Ken Stabler. And you look at, Montana, won 4 Super Bowls. Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls. Stabler won 1. These guys had up and down careers. It wasn't all peaches and cream. It wasn't all rosy. So when you have a 10-year career, a 15-year career, whatever the career is, however long it lasts, it's not all going to be up at this level. It's going to go up, and then it's going to go down. Montana had a lot of bad seasons, a lot of bad games, and he's a Hall of Famer. So give Derek Carr a chance, my friend. He's only been in the league, how many years?
This is his 4th year.
Oh, God.
But let me just tell you,
he's still a baby.
No, he is. But let me just counter with that just a little bit further, John. Though that none of those quarterbacks and none of those athletes ever played in a social media age, and we live in an age now where everything is the best you've ever seen or the worst you've ever seen, and then people go on their phones like they do here, and they go and they voice it, and so that's a bit of what our culture is like now. It's not, again, this is like the best play ever, the worst play ever. Derek Carr, the best quarterback ever, he's garbage. It's just, you get this now. And so, but I will tell you, athletes like Derek, though, now that they know they live in this world, so it does not affect them. So at least we know that for players like him, he's always said this, I don't get too high, I don't get too low. He's very even-keeled.
Listen, I can remember some horrible games that Ken Stabler had. Like, he threw 7 interceptions in like one game, and it might have been against New Orleans. Got to look that up.
And we don't know. He could have gotten a lot of written notes and threats and things like that, but now that's transferred digitally. Now that's on a phone, that's on Twitter now.
Can you imagine Derek Carr throwing 7 interceptions in one game in this day and age after the 5th one?
Yeah, he'll throw 3 and you can see it already. So you don't need 7, even 3 interceptions. You can see what some of the comments are. It's pretty remarkable.
Man, give the guy a chance.
Yeah.
He's only been in the league 4 years. It takes a while to rise to the top. And like I said, all these people had up and down careers until they, you judge a person over a length of time.
Sure.
Not over one season.
No, but even on
in social media or not. I mean, come on.
But that's the thing. People don't have that much patience anymore. I have even friends who are Raider fans, and in the first quarter of a game, for instance, even this Sunday night game that they just most recently played, I have a friend of mine who's the biggest Raider fan, and he was like, I'm already preparing for a Raider loss. This O-line is terrible. This defense can't stop anybody. And then by the fourth quarter, when they're about to win the game, he goes, well, at least the offensive line is improving. At least the defense is bend but don't break. On to the next. And it already in a 3-hour vacuum, you can see the range of emotions. So you're asking people to have at least a year or 2 or 3 to be patient. People aren't even patient during one TV game.
10 years.
No, people won't even be patient for one TV game. 3 hours, let alone 10 years, John. Come on.
Oh my God. But you know what? I agree with you, 100% right. Social media changed everything because you throw 1 interception, 1 fumble, and boy, they want to hang somebody.
They sure do.
It's crazy. It's only a football game. 436 Me TV option 11. It's supposed to be entertainment, my friends. We're back with the one and only Tommy Tran of ABC Channel 30 in just a moment.
The following is a list of celebrities you will not see on Me TV programs. Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Snooki, Paris Hilton, Perez Hilton, Honey Boo Boo, Justin Bieber, Simon Cowell, Chris Brown, Miley Cyrus, and the Real Housewives of any place. This is who you will see on Me TV programs. Lucy, Ralph, Mary, Perry, Gilligan, Kenner, Spock, Batman, Rowdy, Festus, and the Beaver. Me TV. Thanks for watching.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
All right, back here with Tommy Tran. I love it when he's here because I love his insight on what's going on, not only in the world of sports, but otherwise. And I want to talk about the Fresno State Bulldogs right now before we run out of time here because we have a lot to talk about. We'll get back to Derek Carr in a moment here. But obviously, you know, they started out really well with a 66-0 win against Incarnate Word. And then Alabama and Washington were blowouts, but then they won the next 4. They've actually won 5 out of the last 6. They lost to UNLV. But I want to roll the videotape from this past weekend. Go ahead and roll it. It's called Fresno State versus BYU. And you can take a look here, Tommy, for yourself. I've got some notes here on, you know, what happened here during the game. It seems like the Bulldogs have snapped out of it. For what reason? Is it Tedford?
Yes, it would be mostly with Jeff Tedford because roughly 80% of this football team is the same football team that only won 1 game last year. So one of a few things here, and even I got to be the first one to tell you, I only thought this team was going to win 3, maybe 5 games at the height, and they've already exceeded that. So let me be the first to tell you that I didn't think this was going to happen or this quickly. Really, when you have a season like 1-11, the worst in program history, you really have to hit the reset button. That's what the university did. Jameer Jordan, he did. It was about a 50-yarder. And so, you know, a couple things with Jeff Tedford. He comes in. He's an experienced coach. He knows what to do. He knows what to expect. He did it at Cal his first year. He had an amazing turnaround with the Bears at 7-5 and got him to a bowl game. And he really got these guys to buy in, and he brought in a completely new staff. So he's brought in some new. And also one extra thing was the transfer quarterback, Marcus McMarion from Dinuba. He got him late in fall camp and made him the starter by conference play, which is about 3 games in. And so that's kind of contributed to this amazing turnaround, John.
Yeah, he took over for Chase and Virgil, and I think he took over on September the 30th, the Nevada game?
Yeah, first conference game. So they had played 3 non-conference games, had a bye week, and then opened up with Nevada at home.
Why was Virgil out and McMarion in?
Really, it just came down to a competition where Virgil was the incumbent. He had been here for a while, and there are some limitations to what Chasey can do. And then when you bring in a guy like Marcus, you're talking about a guy who was out of Dinuba, highly recruited, went to a Pac-12 school at Oregon State, and then things didn't work out for him in Corvallis. And so, you know, Jeff Tedford and the group said, hey, you have a chance to come here. Now, he's a graduate transfer, but he's unlike most graduate transfers. They typically only have 1 year. Marcus did all of his academics so quickly that he actually will have 2 years of eligibility, including this year. So he has the ability to play this year and next year, which is really big for this program.
Yeah, and you know, he's thrown, I mean, his biggest game he had against New Mexico, 299 yards, 276 against Nevada. 174 here against BYU, but he's also got some good running backs in Rivers, Hokett,
Mims
scored 2 touchdowns, including the game winner against BYU. He's also got some good receivers in Jordan.
Yeah, the strength of this team really offensively are the receivers. Jordan, you mentioned, Darion Grimm, as well as Keyshawn Johnson. The running backs are all young. You're talking about 2 true freshmen in Mims and Rivers. You got local guys like Hokett as well and DeJounte O'Neal. So, again, this team is playing above expectations. They're doing very well. They're playing exciting football, although they do have one of their toughest stretches ahead of them.
All right, yeah, because they play Hawaii. And Wyoming and Boise State. Are these all conference games?
Yes, they will be down the stretch. BYU is the only non-conference one that they had in the middle of the season, but they've got 3 straight conference games with 2 of them on the road back-to-back.
All right, get out your crystal ball.
Oh, no.
Hawaii, Wyoming, and Boise State. Let's see, the one this weekend is at Hawaii, right?
Yes, at Hawaii, the Islands. They're leaving actually a day early. Coach Tedford, during his press conference, said he wants to leave early so they can get acclimated. So they're leaving Thursday. They're going to get to Honolulu. They're going to do a Pearl Harbor Day, I believe, Friday, and then they're just going to hang out and get ready for the game on Saturday.
The big question is, and none of us, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 games.
Sure.
But do they have to win 2 out of the next 3 to qualify for the bowl?
Well, so they're bowl eligible with the 6, and I'm pretty sure the way that Fresno State and their fans have traveled before, they're going to get a bowl game. So now it's just
even if they lose the next 3.
Yes. So when in college football, when you hit 6, that's a sort of a big threshold. When you become bowl eligible, for the most part, that's a 99% lock that you're going to get it.
Even if they're 6-6, they're
Correct.
going to a bowl.
Yes, that's how it is.
Wow.
Yeah, even a couple years ago, 5-7 got them, or 5-6 with a conference championship game gets you in. So basically, 6 is always the magic number in college football.
Okay.
You get to 6, you're going to get to go to a bowl game. what they have in front of them is actually even bigger. Right now, they're in the driver's seat in the West Division. You say 2 out of the 3. If somehow they can win 2 out of the 3 games coming up, they pretty much will have won the West Division and locked a spot in the conference title game. And then they even have an outside chance of hosting that. So there's still a lot of scenarios ahead of them. They're all winnable games. I'm not saying that they're going to be favored to win all these 3 games, but these are really key games that ahead of them. They've shown that they can win big games like San Diego State. But even if somehow they lose the next 3, they're going to get to go to a bowl game.
All right. 2 or 3 more questions about Fresno State and we'll move on. Number one, why have they bought into Tedford's belief that this is the same, basically the same group we had last year?
Right.
But you're going to buy into my theory because here's what I think is going on with you guys. And look, I know better than you because I coached at Cal.
Yeah.
I was successful. This is how it's done, guys. One thing to say it, how do you get guys to believe it?
Well,
How's he doing that?
You've laid it out, actually. Well, he's mentioned many times that these kids are open to being coached, and that's always a big thing.
Okay.
And he's also mentioned a few things that he's done differently. They do nutrition a little bit differently, their work schedule, their school schedule. So, for instance, they do practice on Sundays. Players have days off on Mondays. They prefer morning practices over afternoon practices. Little things, not saying that's the only reason, but again, when you come off a year that's so bad that you are the worst team in Fresno State history, when someone comes in and gives you a ray of hope, you're gonna be open to it. And then when you start winning, I talked to Josh Hokett, who's from Clovis, and I asked him, do you feel better about coming out to practice? Is it contagious? Can you feel it? And he said, yeah, you wanna feel good about what you're doing out here. When you win, it kind of validates what you're doing, and so you want to keep doing more of it.
Yeah.
And so, they've certainly done well, and I think they will. Now, I will say one thing though, this team is not talented enough to just show up and win. They can win when they have focus and do everything that's laid out in front of them, which we've seen. But a few mistakes can cost them a game like they did against UNLV a couple weeks ago. So, like I said, these next 3 are very winnable games, but to say that they would be favored or expect them to win, a little tough.
So they have to go according to script.
They do. They really have to win the turnover battle. They really kind of have to go according to script. But like I said, they've shown it so far for the majority of this year, and if they can do it more often than not, they've won.
What I've been reading is the fact that the fans haven't bought all the way in yet.
Yeah.
Is that true or
well,
false?
look, I've talked about this before, actually. I think sometimes, even in sports, we live in this little bubble where we think, man, this team is playing so well. They're bowl eligible. They're, at the time, 4-0 in conference play. You would expect, why aren't 41,000 fans here? I actually tweeted out a statistic. So there are a lot of correlations between this year's team and the one in 2012. I say that because in 2011, the Dogs went 4-9, fired Pat Hill, brought in Tim DeRuyter. The attendance numbers for that 2012 season was actually pretty low. You're talking about 27,000, 25,000, 27,000. At the end of the year, it was around 33,000.
Okay.
Those are very similar numbers to this year. Right now, average is around 27,000, with the exception of the Derek Carr season opener where they sold out because Derek Carr is in town. So, another discussion for another day about why, but I can just tell you that recent history has shown us that the community, it takes a little while before they're going to really show up in droves.
Yeah, because they were selling out in Derek's senior year, right?
Yes,
They
so
had the
2013, yes,
41,000.
exactly. So 2012, it took them a little while, but once 2013 came along, they didn't even actually sell out that Rutgers game, which was really exciting.
Hang on, caller.
And they took care of Boise, but they were selling out the rest of the way.
Yeah. All right, caller, you're on the air. We'll take this call and then go to break here. You're on with Tommy Tran. Go ahead.
Tommy, I just wanted to say that, the Bulldogs are young, but I love that quarterback. He's got receivers. They have a lot of speed for the outside, but they also have running back. So, I didn't think they were going to do as well as they did this year, but the coach has them thinking that we're better than we were last year, okay? Like you say, the same group of kids. Now it's just to beef them up and get them physically strong. And, hey, they're a young team. So he's got them 2 or 3 years. He's going to do quite a lot. If he's going to do what he's doing this year, man, I hate to see them next year, And then you look at the fans. I have never seen that many fans in the stadium before. And, last year was it was a losing season. But you know what? The coach is a person that, was here, and at the same time, he's got the staff that is ready and willing to do what he wants them to do. But he's not one to pick on the coaches, The kids have to know that it takes them to do it. Coaches are to coach and teach, but if the kids don't do it, they're not going to go anywhere. But they're really, really good, Tommy. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Great call.
that call.
Thank you.
And let me just piggyback off that just real quickly. So I think, as any coach will tell you, they ultimately would want their players to take initiative and, in many ways, self-police themselves.
Right.
So in the 2012, even though they were coming off a bad year, you're talking about a guy like Derek Carr, Duron Smith, Phillip Thomas, Devontae Adams. Those guys were veteran guys that started policing themselves and really did not want another bad year. This particular Bulldog team's a little bit younger, so again, they need to be coached up a little bit, but like as your caller said, give them time, and the best thing you can do is seeing your players start to police themselves, take onus for what they're doing, because then your job becomes a little bit easier.
Aside from the Alabama-Washington games, which I throw out the window, just throw it out with the wash, because to me that they don't count. But if you look at these other games, in the last 6 games, the Bulldogs have scored 169 points total. The defense has only given up 73. What does that tell you?
Well, you can throw out those 2 games, but I will tell you those 2 games are valuable in terms of experience. I think going to those 2 big environments, you're talking about 2 of the top 10 teams in the country, surviving, staying relatively healthy, has really set up this team to say, hey, we can go anywhere and we can play with the big boys and we can win some of these games. So you can throw them out record-wise that they don't count, and you mentioned the record. The UNLV loss actually was the most interesting because they were huge favorites going to UNLV. And again, we're talking about 17, 18, 19-year-old young men, and you walk around school, everyone's saying, hey, great job, congratulations, and they came out just a bit flat against that game in which they lost.
They lost to Alabama 41-10, 48-16 to Washington. In which game do you think they performed the best?
Oh, Alabama for sure. Okay. Alabama was tight until the end. They played very well offensive line and the schemes that offensive coordinator Kalen DeBoer put together. They had a very good showing at Alabama. The Washington game is where it kind of got out of their control because the speed of the Huskies and that environment, that's where that game was already done in the first quarter. This other Alabama game wasn't really lost until the 3rd or 4th.
All right, caller, you're on the air with Tommy Tran. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, actually, the thing about the bowl games being bowl eligible, that changed about 2 or 3 years ago. That as long as you were 500 at the end of the year, that you were going to automatically get a bowl bid, unless, like Tommy said, if you had a bad record before league, but you won your league, you could still get an invite if you were like 5-7, even 5-8, whatever. But what I wanted to say about Derek Carr, I think the reason some of the people are jumping off his bandwagon now, he's kind of starting to act just a little bit like he's God's gift to football. He's out there making all these commercials and this and that, and people are very critical of that. They say, oh, he's spending all his time on commercials now. He's not concentrating on football. Then this is why they're losing. His mind isn't on football. He just wants to prance around and do this and that. Kind of singing career, not just like a big joke. So I think this is part of the reason they're jumping off the bandwagon. And he's not having the kind of year that he had last year. So, and then they're also worried about his back. This is the way Tony Romo started. Right. It was a small back injury. It got worse and worse. Now he's out of football. He never won anything.
Okay.
So that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Thank you much. Don't forget, years ago, back in the 80s, Joe Montana had a back problem.
Yeah.
And I think he was out for the better part of one season.
Mm-hmm.
And so is there any merit to what the caller is saying at all?
Well, yes and no. So let me talk about when Derek tapes these commercials, they're all done in the off season. Yeah. He does not do any of it during the season. So if your argument is that he's distracted or he's not spending time on football, I would want you to know how these commercials and things are done first before you make that assessment. Now afterward, if you say, hey, I still think Derek's this way, then then you're more than welcome to that opinion. Obviously, I have a weekly thing with Derek on Mondays. If some people say, well, he shouldn't be doing that with Tommy Tran because he's got it, but that's his off day. So
that's Derek's choice.
But that's his choice. But what I'm saying is, the commercials that he has in town, the things that he's doing, those are all handled in the off season. So those are not taking away from his day-to-day preparations. And there are a few guys that prepare more than Derek. But again, if you feel like some of these things is getting to his head, that he's become a little big-headed with what he's doing with his brand, then that's certainly your opinion, and you're entitled to it.
Right. Okay. Tommy Tran is here. 436-ME-TV, option 11. We're going to talk on the other side about Derek Carr and the Raiders specifically in just a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
It's time for QB&A, and joining me is Derek Carr, a guy who's no stranger to fourth quarter comebacks. So typically we talk the day after a game. We've had a few days since, Derek, so I'm going to ask you, was this the biggest comeback in your NFL career?
I mean, it has to be, at this point, because we definitely needed a win. This was something that, going into the game, especially on a short week against, really one of the best teams in the, in the league, we needed this win. And so the fact that our team was able to, get a stop late, and then special teams got us the ball back, which is always the number one goal. And then, we were able to go down as an offense and score, a couple times, so, it was definitely a much needed one. Most important, I would say, yes, just because it was the most recent, but you know how that works.
Some great photos there. A good interview with Tommy Tran. Every Tuesday it runs, right?
Yep,
So it's
Tuesday.
going to run tonight at what time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock and 11 too?
Yes, a little bit of a sort of a shortened version at 11, but we do put the entire QB&A segment online on Facebook and Twitter after the 6 o'clock sportscast.
Okay, I want to roll the videotape, and the reason I picked this game is because it's my favorite game of the year. It's against the Chiefs at home on Thursday Night Football. In fact, the baseball playoffs are going on at the same time. It's called Raiders versus Chiefs. Roll it, Carrie, and we'll talk over this. And this is an incredible game, only because, the Raiders won in the last moment here. Here's Carr coming down field. Look at Cook. Cook has become his favorite receiver, Jared Cook, and it's not Michael Crabtree. Why?
Well, part of it is the defense is taking the receivers away, and so Derek has found Cook to be his big safety net and safety blanket, much like Travis Kelce in Kansas City or Rob Gronkowski in New England. If they take the receivers away, you got to go to your tight end, and they've used Cook very well the last few games.
Yeah, and look at this. I think this is the catch again right here. He barely gets it. Yep, he hangs onto the ball. He's inbounds, just short of the goal line, and that, of course, set up the last play to the one to Michael Crabtree. But prior to that, I think you're going to see it here in the video, you had 3 occasions where the refs called penalties on the final play of the game. You had 3 consecutive penalties. I think 1 against the Raiders and 2 against the Chiefs that set up the final touchdown. It's amazing. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, especially in a primetime game for a team to have to basically win the game or lose the game 3 or 4 times is exactly what the Raiders had to do. Right there, you thought they won the game. No, Crabtree gets called for a flag. They have to do it again. Then Kansas City gets called for 2 flags, and then you finally see at the end, I don't know if we're not enough time to get to it, but Derek rolls left and finds Crabtree near the goal line for the touchdown at the very end.
Yeah,
so.
I think we got a couple of minutes left here in this video, so you're going to see. Okay, so Crabtree pushes off here, and I heard the announcer say that's questionable call right there. But and then you got Kansas City pushing off here. I think this is push off number 1 as Carr hits. Who was that?
That was supposed to be for Cook.
For Cook, yeah.
And there's a penalty, and there's going to be another one right after that, and then there's the third one that gets out to Crabtree when Derek rolls left and goes to Crabtree near the goal line.
And here's the interesting part, Tommy. Lynch was thrown out of this game.
Oh, people forgot about that, didn't they? He ran from the sideline and then went to what people thought was maybe protecting Derek, but he actually has a cousin, Marcus Peters, who's a cornerback, and so that was definitely a talking point for Raider fans that night as well.
And that's another push-off right there, back of the end zone, and so this will set up the game winner. It was a pretty exciting finish, and this was typical of yesteryear, back in the 70s and 80s when the Raiders were pulling all these games out of their hat. Remember, George Blanda was doing the same thing back in the 70s, and here comes the game-winning touchdown. There was no question it was a touchdown, right?
Yeah, this one here with Derek rolling left, fine Crabtree. Even though they still had to review it, that's today's NFL. They had to look at everything, but that was a no-doubter.
Yeah, in talking to Carr, what is your inner sense? You know how athletes think, you know how they act, you know what their mannerisms are. Just in talking to Derek, and I haven't seen him in person in a while, but what's the feeling? What's the gut feeling that you get in the way he talks and his mannerisms? Does he still have that confidence?
He does, and he takes the blame for everything. Especially when they lose. But he is still very much a leader. The question is whether or not this particular team, will still gravitate to him like they did last year. And they face some adversity. They faced a 4-game losing streak. Right now they're under 500 at 4-5, but they have a bye week. And they have the New England Patriots in Mexico City coming up 2 weekends from now.
Yeah.
And so it's a time for them to hit the reset button. I talked to him this Monday, and he is optimistic, but they know that there really is no margin for error. If you're a Raider fan, I will tell you that the Raiders have played much better, especially the offensive line has started to be more physical. They've started to run the ball a little bit more with more physicality and more success, and that running game is really going to help the passing game. Derek's had 3 straight 300-yard passing games, but they're going to need to run the football if they're going to be successful.
Right, and one more thing about the Raiders, and that is, actually 2 more things. Their schedule: the Patriots in Mexico, then they got Denver, the Giants, KC again at KC, then they got Dallas at home, at Philly.
Right.
Philly, the best team in football right now. And then they got the LA Chargers, a team they lost to. But here's the thing. I heard this comment on ESPN, and I want to get your take on it. Can they win with this defense?
Well, here's the deal. That's the thing. The identity of this Raider team has always been their offense. Arguably the best offensive line in the AFC, second or third best in the entire NFL behind the Cowboys, and maybe you can talk about the Eagles right now. So when they were winning last year, their defense has always been bad. There's no sugarcoating how bad their defense is. But when they played with a lead, when they played ahead, that allowed for the defense to play opportunistic defense, or they could take Khalil Mack, who's a tremendous pass rusher, defensive player of the year, and unleash him on situations where he can go and just get the quarterback. That is how this defense plays at its peak, based off of the offense. Now, what's happened this year is the offense has stalled, and in many cases has never even gotten going. And when the offense only scores 17, 20 points, this Oakland team needs to score mid to high 20s, if not 30s, to win on a regular basis.
Right. Hang on, caller. Get to you in a moment. And one more reason to watch Tommy Tran on ABC Channel 30. Not only does he have that Derek Carr interview every Tuesday. It's an exclusive, my friends. You can also watch him on Friday Night Football. I want to roll the videotape. It's a very short piece of videotape. Friday Night Football. It's got sound on it. Tommy Tran doing the highlights.
Warmed up, Tommy, and after you for your 2 games. Lots of scoring. Same here. I was in Kerman at small Fresno County town for a big-time matchup between the upstart Lions and perennial powerhouse of the NSL, the Hawks of Liberty Madera Ranchos. It was senior night for the Lions. Sean Chambers and his classmates opening drive. Corman forced to punt. Kerman, that is, low snap, bobbles around, recovered by Rylan Howe in the end zone. That's 7 the easy way, so 7-0 Liberty Madera Ranchos. Interim head coach Stephen Hurt needs a response. He would get it. Chambers under duress, scrambling. Will he run or will he pass? He's going to float one to Christopher Acosta. 17-yard TD, PAT no good, 7-6. But we're not done yet. Hawk fans, they travel well. Their team would also respond. Ensuing drive, first play, Wyatt Roth nearly juked me, but I got it, and Chris, he got it. 67-yard touchdown. And a play of the week candidate, we'll have to wait and see. 13-7 visitors, but back come the Lions. Ensuing drive, Acosta to the right side, pay dirt, and a mug to my camera. Kerman starts pulling away from Liberty Madera Ranchos, and the Lions beat the Hawks 56-26. They've got a road game in Washington Union where both teams will honor Coach Anthony Taylor at John Ventura Stadium. CMAC battle between...
Yeah. Okay, so Tommy, good Friday night highlight package here, and of course you anchor that with Chris Alvarez, right?
Yes, on Friday nights,
Every
yeah.
Friday night. And so I'm looking at the high school football standings here right now. You got the playoffs starting this weekend?
Yes, this Thursday actually, because of the Veterans Day holiday observed on Friday.
And so, you know, I know Division I, it's all the big teams. You got Central. Who else is Division I? You got Clovis West, Buchanan. But I specifically want to talk, I'm so intrigued by Tulare Union because I saw them play one year, and these are big guys. I went out there and I saw these players play in person at their stadium in Tulare, and I thought, gosh, those guys are big for high school. Why is this team so good?
Yeah, Darren Bennett's done a fantastic job down in Tulare. They've always had some good players, especially at the running back position. Most recently, you think of guys like Romello Harris, it's now a Fresno State Bulldog, but they have this sort of triplets. If you're going back to the 90s of Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, and Emmitt Smith, well, they've got that with Nathan Lamb at quarterback, Amorie Edwards at receiver, who's going to Fresno State, and then Kashmir Allen, who's a record-setting running back. He was committed to Boise State. He reopened his recruitment, and he is one of those electrifying players. He had 7 touchdowns and about 545 total yards in the most important game, which was the bell game against hated Tulare Western this last weekend.
Right, 62-41.
And he had 7 total touchdowns. I think he's got 55 for the season. So he is simply electric. The highlights show it. And they've got a good shot, if they can win Division II, to go to a state championship bowl game and win the whole thing.
All right, let me ask you this, because limited on time now. I think we've only got about, what, a minute left? 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Quickly, why is there Division I, II, and III in high school football?
Well, they got to break it down. It's the big schools. They're trying to get some more parity with some of the Central Coast schools next year, and then it all kind of filters out based on attendance there.
Tommy, you got to come back.
All right, anytime you have me, John.
All right, thank you very much. Tommy Tran, ABC Channel 30. You can watch him weeknights at 5, 6, and 11. And don't forget about Derek Carr's interview tonight and Friday Night Football. Tomorrow, the Sikhs are in. We'll talk about the Sikh community here in the Central Valley. Have a good day.